This video is sponsored by Terminull Brigade, a free-to-play third-person action RPG with heavy roguelike elements which just launched on July 29th. Now, a third-person action shooter with an emphasis on upgrades and horde combat is already something that was so incredibly up my alley, but getting paid to talk about it? Shoot, sign me up. So let me break it down for you all as to what my goals are with this video. I want to cover not only what you might see within your first couple days of gameplay or so, but also I want to go in depth into the variety of overlapping systems and mechanics that you are introduced to during that time, because it can be easy to let all the nuance pass you by and fall into the stupor of but Terminull actually does some really cool things with its progression systems that I think deserve to be talked about. Terminull Brigade is set in a far future following the advent of a new technological innovation, the Terminull. This is a new piece of sci-fi technology that lets people jack into a virtual paradise. Surely this tech product has undergone sufficient testing to ensure the safety of the general population after its deployment. Yeah? Okay, so sentient viruses attacked the Terminull and began trapping users within the virtual world. This is bad, shown subtly by how everything is now red and evil. In response, Ion, the Terminull's virtual overseer, has assembled a team of the only people who stand a chance of saving the virtual world. That's right, gamers. This team now fights to overthrow the viruses and save the Terminull, like some kind of Terminull Brigade, if you will. Let's start small. Your first choice in Terminull Brigade is your character, or Rogateer as they're called around these parts. Each Rogateer comes with 3 abilities, a passive, and a choice of weapon with some unique properties. Character passives synergize with other aspects of their kit to slightly nudge you towards a certain playstyle. For example, the passive of Aurora, one of the 2 starter Rogateers, allows her to deal bonus damage with her weapon fire against crowd-controlled enemies. Her abilities provide the requisite procs to make that passive work, but if you were to, say, find an upgrade during a run that freezes enemies as well, you have a slight bit of motivation to build around that. All Rogateers are very simple and easy to understand at a glance, which works in their favor, as all of them have to act as a platform for some absolutely wild upgrades. Starting out, you get to choose between 2 Rogateers, Aurora and Colonel. Don't worry too much about this, because the next day you log in, you'll get the other one for free. The dichotomy between these 2 provides a great example of how, again, characters in Terminull Brigade are designed to have a specific playstyle, but also have broad enough kits to work with every type of upgrade available in the game. Colonel is the classic shooty gun guy, with a slight bit of survivability in the form of a temporary shield ability. His ultimate, a moving damage AoE, and his primary, a single target missile, both apply a debuff called Fragile, which causes enemies to take more damage. Colonel's passive also causes all his weapon attacks against these fragile targets to count as instant headshots, and it also restores charges to his primary ability, which makes Colonel a very good single target damage dealer, while conversely, Aurora has more options for clearing and subduing crowds. In addition to her heavy AoE abilities that apply Stagnant, a slowing debuff, Aurora's primary is a chaining lightning gun. Was the knight in shining armor. Levels in Terminull Brigade are quick, easy to understand, and replayable. Any given run is constructed of a sequence of pre-built arenas where a variety of enemies need to be defeated to move on. I found myself really fond of these rooms, which is good, as depending on the difficulty you're at, you might spend quite some time in them. Enemies spawn from multiple angles, making it really hard to just lock down in a single corner and kill everything. Furthermore, a lot of rooms have these bounce pads, which allow for easy vertical movement of both you and the enemies. One of my absolute favorites is this room here, which has a large lower area with several walls to break up sightlines, surrounded by several platforms of varying heights. This creates a ton of different routes you might take, either running from or directly towards enemies based on your Rogateer of choice. Enemies also have a nice variety. Terminull is a horde shooter, so you've got your staples. Melee units who rush you down in hordes, ranged enemies and flyers which demand a bit more priority, chunky elites with special modifiers, bomb robots. It's good. The mix of enemy types and the care that was put into making different rooms feel unique and good to play in goes a long way into keeping these areas feeling fresh during repeat run-throughs, which you will be doing a lot of. The most dramatic increase to your character's power comes from the Arbiters. These guys are other inhabitants of the digital world, and provide you with perks that function similar to the boons from Hades. One Arbiter perk can be applied to each of your character's 3 abilities, as well as their primary fire, dodge, and reload. Each Arbiter's perks follow specific themes, and have their own effects and keywords. These range from the very simple to understand, such as the Arbiter of Thunder, who focuses on chain lightning attacks for dealing with crowds, and powerful direct lightning strikes, to the much more esoteric, such as the Arbiters of games and music, who deal with summons and forced enemy movement, respectively. My personal favorite, though, might just be the Arbiter of Wealth, whose perks both increase your coins earned through your run, and can give your attacks a chance to randomly deal more damage that scales with your held money. This allows you to burst down some bosses insanely quickly through sheer force of wealth. Arbiters are a really cool form of power to introduce to a multiplayer horde shooter like Terminull, because while you do get a starter pack of perks at the beginning of a run from whichever Arbiter you want, everything you encounter after that is random, meaning you won't be rocking the exact same set of perks on repeated runs, and you have to pick what works in the moment and figure out what your build is as you go. This also means that in a team of, say, just hypothetically here, 3 identical Rogateers, because you're all playing in the early game and everyone picked Aurora as their starter hero, you will still have a varied and unique range of abilities compared to your teammates. You'll also pick up relics as you progress through a run. These are items that grant slight stat bonuses, but also contribute to a larger set bonus that helps define your build. For example, the drone set gives a damage increase when you reload from empty, and the SMG set gives increased weapon crit rate and damage. There are also legendary relics, which have much stronger effects and count for 2 different item sets, like the small bomber, which counts as both a drone and an SMG. Relics and perks are acquired from enemy drops and room clears, but at the end of every room is also a shop where you can spend coins taken from enemies to buy perk upgrades, extra relics, or healing. But you don't really need healing, right? I mean, that's money you can spend on DPS increases. Besides, if you don't get hit, then HP isn't a problem. Eventually, you'll end up at a boss encounter. I really like how Terminull handles these fights, as boss attacks are well telegraphed but still require a level of skill to dodge, and bosses all have unique mechanics that break up what would otherwise be building up a stun meter and then unloading all your cooldowns. One particular mechanic I liked was the introduction of automated turrets, a feature of the Malcolm boss fight where several turrets start shooting at you and require you to follow their glowing cables to destroy their power supplies, while also under immense amounts of enemy fire. To make sure you understand this possibly confusing mechanic in advance, though, the game puts a room before the boss that incorporates that very same turret mechanic into a puzzle situation to make sure that when it actually shows up in the boss fight, you already know exactly what you're supposed to do. Beating the bosses lets you get a potential, powerful, character-specific upgrades that can drastically alter your playstyle, but you only get to keep one of throughout a run. These can do things such as double your fire rate at the cost of damage, or give you stacking damage bonuses on enemy kill. Putting together a good combo of relics, perks, and a potential lets you absolutely blitz through both cannon fodder and boss battles alike. But in true roguelike fashion, at the end of your run, you have to say goodbye to all that power. Don't worry though, each run gives you code, which can be used on ability modules that give your character a variety of permanent incremental increases to damage, survivability, and most importantly, cash flow. Terminull Brigade's standard mode has you running through one of 2 maps at a selectable difficulty that you progressively unlock higher and higher tiers of as you play. Runs in the standard mode last around 20 or so minutes and have you progress through several enemy rooms and boss encounters, culminating in a showdown with a final boss. Beating these runs within a pretty generous time limit unlocks the next tier of challenges and eventually the second area, the Wasteland, which offers new enemies, new bosses, and eventually new loot. After several repeated runs of standard mode, you'll unlock the Combat Terminal, which lets you socket modules in each Rogateer's uniquely shaped modding board. Modules give both overall damage and defense increases, as well as randomly selected smaller bonuses such as magazine capacity or skill damage. There are also higher tiers of modules which offer better bonuses, more stat increases, and unique effects. You can spend resources to both re-roll the bonuses on your modules as well as randomly reshape them. This allows you to more effectively cram as many stat boosts as possible into your terminal. I think this creates a really interesting system, as it provides both an easy to understand method of increasing power for newer players, that being, well, cram as many funny looking crystals into your hexagon board as possible, while also containing the depth to allow the really high level players the opportunity to min-max out their boards with a bunch of high level legendary modules that all give stat boosts and everything, aligning to a very specific powerful build style. You can also apparently unlock cores even further on, which can be socketed into high level modules, but I don't have any of those yet. I just got given this Intensity 3 legendary module out of the blue. I am not qualified to handle tech this powerful, but I digress. After beating difficulty level 6 of standard mode, you unlock Corrective Action, a more difficult, seasonal game mode that sees you run through less rooms and only 2 bosses, while also having a selectable breakdown points mechanic, where you have to pick out a certain amount of handicaps to put on yourself that starts at a requirement of 4 and scales up with each floor of corrective action. By the way, there are 50 floors. I just about, after several attempts, managed to beat floors 1 and 2 after my 7 or so hours of initial gameplay, but this rabbit hole goes even deeper. After beating floor 10 of corrective action, you unlock even more game modes, but like I said, your boy's currently fighting for his life in the shallows. Overall, I think Terminull Brigade has an incredibly solid gameplay loop. Mow through enemies, get stronger in a run, get rewarded with permanent upgrades, use those to take on harder challenges, and then get even stronger loot. Just as importantly though, I think Terminull early on has established a really solid framework that can now be built upon with future updates. You can add new maps, new rogateers, game modes, arbiters, the works. Something that I think is incredibly important as well is that the developers are keen on ensuring this game is the best it can be in accordance with player feedback. I know this personally because in the middle of my first collective action attempt, they shut the servers down for about an hour to rebalance some of the early game progression that people had voiced their displeasure over, making 2 more rogateers, Blade and Max, accessible much earlier in the game. And again, right, this is a sponsored video. I am being paid to cover this game, but I genuinely think that this is something I would have played on my own regardless, so if you think Terminull Brigade sounds like something that's up your alley as well, feel free to click the link in the description and download the game for free on Steam, the Epic Game Store, or the official website. Alright, that's all from me, gang. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a giant metal serpent I need to go take out my aggression on. See ya!